Once there was a king. He was kind and wise, but one thing made him very angry. He married a new girl every day and then had her executed the next morning. The king's minister, Bashir, was very upset with the king's actions. One day, the king married a girl, kept her for one night, and then had her killed the next morning. The villagers brought the girl's body to the minister's house and demanded justice. They asked, "Why does the king kill our daughters? What did they do wrong?" The minister was very sad but couldn't do much. He always tried to talk to the king, but the king never listened. The villagers cried and pleaded with the minister. The minister had a beautiful and smart daughter who was listening to the villagers' complaints. The minister's daughter said to her father, "I want to marry the king." The minister replied, "But my dear, you know the king will kill you the next day. Do you still want to marry him?" The daughter said, "Father, people will say that the minister hides his daughter while letting others suffer. If you let me marry him, at least you can say you tried to save others' daughters too. Also, life and death are in God's hands." The minister loved his daughter very much, but she insisted, so he agreed. Now, let's find out why the king behaved this way. A long time ago, the king had a wife whom he loved very much. One day, he caught her in bed with a servant. He was so hurt that he made a picture of them in that situation and hung it in his room to remind him of the betrayal. The king wanted to always remember his wife's betrayal and believed all women were unfaithful. His hatred for women grew so much that he saw them all the same. This is why he married a new girl every day and had her executed the next morning, thinking that if he had no woman in his life, no one could betray him. The minister Bashir tried to explain this to the king many times, but the king wouldn't listen. Now, let's return to the minister, who agrees to let his daughter marry the king. The minister reluctantly tells the king, "My daughter wants to marry you." The king, surprised, asks, "Doesn't she know that I will have her executed the next day?" The minister, with tears in his eyes, replies, "She insists on it." The king says, "If she insists and you want to fulfill her wish, then prepare for the wedding." The very next day, the minister's daughter marries the king and becomes the queen. That night, when the king looks at her, he finds her very beautiful. He is focused on her beauty until he notices the picture of his unfaithful wife in the room. Anger and memories of betrayal fill his mind. In a fit of rage, the king asks, "Why did you do such a foolish thing knowing you will be executed tomorrow?" The queen very respectfully says, "My lord, this is God's decision, and I accept it." The king replies, "You know you will die tomorrow." The queen says, "Yes, I know I will die at dawn, but there is still one night before that." She continues, "Happiness in love is not measured by time but by its depth." The king, still angry, says, "Your sweet words will not change my mind." The queen calmly replies, "I am your wife for this night, and I have the right to it. The morning is under your control. Please calm down for just one night." Gradually, the king starts to calm down and feel more at peace. The queen said, "To make you feel better, shall I tell you a poem, a story, or sing you a song?" The king replied, "You are my wife for the night, and you have the right to it. Tell me a story." Then, the queen respectfully offered the king a drink and began her story. Once there was a merchant who had a wife, a young daughter, and 3 little sons. He was a trader and had to marry off his daughter. One day, he had to go on a long journey. Before leaving, he met his family, and his daughter gave him some dates, saying, "Father, if you get hungry during your journey, you can eat these." He took the dates and set off on his journey. After walking for a long time, he became tired and saw a pond with water. The pond was quite far down, and he had to climb down to reach it. He decided to rest there, eat some dates, and drink some water. As he was eating the dates, he threw the pits into the pond. Suddenly, the water in the pond turned red, and a huge jinn appeared from the pond, holding a large sword. The poor merchant was terrified and started shaking. The jinn said, "I will kill you now. Get ready to die." The merchant asked, "What have I done wrong? Why do you want to kill me?" The jinn replied, "You ate the dates and threw the pits into the pond. One of the pits got stuck in my small child's throat, and he died." The merchant said, "But I didn't see your child." The jinn angrily replied, "We jinn are not visible to humans." The merchant, crying and trembling, said, "But I didn't know. How can this be my fault?" The jinn said, "You should have been careful. Now prepare to save your life." The jinn said, "Don't make excuses. If this is your crime, then it happened in ignorance." The jinn replied, "Whether in ignorance or knowingly, a crime is a crime. I want justice for my son's death. Blood for blood. That's the only fair solution." The poor merchant, trembling, said, "If my death will bring you peace, then I accept it. But I have one condition." The jinn asked, "What is it?" The merchant replied, "After I die, I can bear the burden of my grave, but I cannot bear the burden of unpaid debts. Over there are the goods and belongings of people I haven't yet delivered. I also have a young daughter whose marriage I need to arrange. Give me time to settle these debts so that I can face your revenge properly." The jinn said, "This is just an excuse to save your life." The merchant replied, "All right, then kill me now. I will grab you by the collar on the day of judgment." As the queen told this story, the morning call to prayer began. The queen stopped speaking. The king asked, "Why did you stop the story? Tell me if the jinn killed the merchant or let him go." The queen replied, "The night has ended, so the story must end. The call to prayer has begun, and it's time for me to die." The king said, "But at least tell me if the jinn killed the merchant or spared him." The queen said, "The story is long, and it needs time to tell. But now time is over." The king said, "We will extend the time. I grant you another night to live. Now, continue the story." The queen replied, "No, my lord. Stories are told at night, and the call to prayer has already begun. It is time for worship, and you must attend to your royal duties." The king agreed and said, "All right, I give you one more day and night to live." The queen then performed ablution and prayed. The queen performed her prayers while the king watched her. He thought, "So many girls have come to me, all with fear on their faces. Why isn't she afraid? Why isn't she scared? She's telling me stories as if she plans to stay with me forever." Her story was very interesting. The king continued to watch the queen and think about her. Suddenly, his eyes fell on the picture of his unfaithful wife, and he became angry again. He left the room and spent the day doing his royal duties. Meanwhile, the queen prayed to God, saying, "Oh God, only you can guide my husband. Please give him guidance so he stops killing the daughters of his people." When evening came, the king returned to his room. The queen washed his hands, served him food, and helped him remove his shoes. The king said, "This is a servant's job. Why are you doing it?" The queen replied, "No, my lord. It is a wife's duty to take care of her husband." The king said, "You are a wife for one night. After that, the servants will do these tasks." The queen responded, "My lord, even in this one night, let me serve you so that I don't feel guilty when I die, thinking I didn't fulfill my duty as a wife." Hearing this, the king felt a bit comforted, but then he remembered his wife's betrayal and became angry again. He said, "Don't talk nonsense, just continue your story." The queen resumed her story. The jinn asked the merchant, "If I give you time, will you return?" The merchant replied, "Yes, I will definitely come back after finishing my tasks and give up my life." The jinn said, "Swear by God." The merchant swore, "I swear by God that I will come back after completing my tasks." The jinn agreed. "All right, I give you 40 days. You must return on the 40th day to give your life." The merchant delivered the goods to the people and returned home after 10 days. His children were happy to see him, and his wife's face lit up with joy. She said, "You must be tired. I will prepare food for you, and then I will offer prayers of thanks for your safe return." Hearing this, the merchant's heart ached, thinking about what would happen to his family when he leaves forever. The next day, he gave gifts to his wife and children from his trade. His wife said, "I don't need jewelry. You are my treasure, my joy, my everything. Just stay with me, and I need nothing else." Tears filled the merchant's eyes. He kept a paper in his pocket, marking the days of his life. Each day, he saw that his life was getting shorter. Finally, he arranged his daughter's marriage, and she went to her new home happily. As the days passed, the time for the merchant's death drew near. The thought of leaving his family made him hollow inside. He worried about his little children and his wife, wondering what would happen to them without him. His wife was unaware and slept peacefully, but the merchant could not sleep. He woke his wife and she asked, "Why are you sweating so much?" The merchant replied, "I have something to tell you." At this point, the call to prayer began again, and the queen fell silent. The king asked, "Why did you stop the story? Tell me what happened next." The queen replied, "The night has ended and so must the story. The call to prayer has begun and it's time for my execution." The king, intrigued, said, "But I want to know what happened next. Did the jinn kill the merchant or not?" The queen responded, "The story is long and it requires time. But now, time is over." The king said, "I will give you another night. Continue the story." The queen replied, "My lord, stories are told at night. The call to prayer has begun, and it is time for worship. You must attend to your royal duties." The king agreed and said, "All right, I grant you one more day and night." The queen then performed her ablution and prayed, while the king watched, puzzled by her calmness and devotion. The merchant replied, "This sweat is from the fear of death. Please bring me a mirror so I can see what the fear of death looks like." His wife asked, "Why are you speaking such ominous words? Thank God for the honor and the wealth He has given us." The merchant, crying, told his wife everything that had happened to him. Hearing this, her heart sank, and she was filled with sorrow. She said, "Take me with you. I will die in your place. This will also bring peace to the jinn." The merchant replied, "No. When a mother dies, the children become orphans. After I am gone, you must take care of our children." He continued crying, "If our wealth runs out or a calamity befalls you and you have no other option, I permit you to remarry." His wife replied, "I am alive to hear this. I wish death would come to me now at your feet." A loyal wife has only one husband. God has blessed women with the status of motherhood, but often, in their love for their husbands and children, they break and shatter like glass. The merchant said, "My faithful wife, accept God's will. Now we have no choice but to be patient." She, sobbing, said, "After you are gone, if bad times come, I will work hard. I will work in people's homes, wash dishes, do laundry, and even beg if I have to. But I will never remarry. My happiness is with you. My joy is you, and my breath is tied to you." Saying this, she hugged her husband and cried. The couple wept together for the last time, holding each other. As the queen narrated this story, the king asked, "Why are you telling this story?" The queen replied, "I wanted to show you the depth of loyalty and love. The merchant's wife was willing to sacrifice everything for her husband, just as I am willing to do for you. Now that dawn has arrived, it is time for my execution." The king, moved by the story, said, "I will give you one more night to live. Continue the story tomorrow night." The queen agreed, knowing she had another night to try and change the king's heart. The king said, "Wow, what a woman! Are there really such women in the world? Even angels would be proud to pray on the doorstep of such a noble and faithful wife." The queen replied, "Yes, you are right. There are some men and women who tarnish the sacred bond of marriage with their sins. There are bad women because of whom even good and virtuous women are questioned and defamed." Hearing this, the king fell into deep thought. The queen continued the story. As the morning approached, the merchant prepared to set off on his journey. His wife and children were crying and bidding him farewell in their last moments together. After their final goodbyes, the merchant started his journey. He traveled and finally reached the place where he was to give his life. The merchant called out to the jinn, "Oh, mighty jinn, I am here. My 40 days are over. Come and take my life and fulfill your revenge." The jinn appeared and said, "Oh, brave young man, I am surprised that you came to face death willingly. But, oh human, I will not kill you. I have forgiven you." The jinn continued, "I didn't believe you that day, so I have been following you and watching you since then. I wanted to know if what you said was true. Now I see that you are a very righteous and honest person, and people like you are rare in this world. I don't want to kill a good person like you. I have forgiven you. Now go back to your wife and children who are waiting for you." Hearing this, the merchant was overjoyed and thanked the jinn. The queen finished the story and said, "Oh, king, now let me tell you a short story about a woman's faithfulness and unfaithfulness." The king, very interested, said, "Sure, go ahead." The queen began. There was once a king who had 4 wives. One of his wives had less beautiful, and she was innocent and straightforward. The other 3 wives were more beautiful and cunning. But the king loved his less beautiful wife very much. He spent most of his time with her. The king would spend most of his time with her, and this did not sit well with his other 3 wives. One day, these 3 wives asked the king, "Why do you love the less beautiful wife more than us? Why do you give her more attention?" The king, being very wise, said, "This is not the right time to answer your question." One day, the king was very happy and called all his 4 wives to him. He said, "Today, I am very happy. Here are diamonds, jewels, and precious stones. Take as much as you want." 3 of the wives quickly filled their bags with as many jewels as they could carry. They then turned to the king and said, "The wife you love the most is still standing there, not taking anything." At that moment, the less beautiful wife came forward, took the king's hand, and said, "Oh king, I don't need any of this. I need you. If I have you, then all of this is mine anyway. You are my happiness, my jewels, my adornment, my everything." The king had expected this from her. He turned to his other wives and said, "You asked me why I love her more than you. Today you have seen her wisdom and loyalty. While you three were busy grabbing jewels, she chose me. She loves me so much that these worldly things mean nothing to her. That is why I love her the most. Yes, she may have less beautiful, but she is the wisest and most loyal wife in the world to me." The queen finished her story. The king now looked at the queen with eyes filled with love. She said, "Oh my lord, not all women are the same, as you have seen in this story." The king's heart softened, and he realized that not all women were unfaithful. But then his eyes fell on the picture of his unfaithful wife again. The queen quickly stepped in front of the picture and said, "As long as you keep this picture, you will always see other women as unfaithful. You will only remember her betrayal and not my loyalty." The king looked at the queen, deeply moved by her words. He took a deep breath and, for the first time in a long while, felt a sense of peace. He then took down the picture of his unfaithful wife and tore it apart, letting go of his past bitterness. From that day forward, he began to see women differently, recognizing their loyalty and faithfulness, just as he had seen in his wise queen. The king tore up the picture of his unfaithful wife and took the queen's hand, saying, "Today, you have opened my eyes and saved me from committing more sins. I have married many women, but you are the one who proved me wrong." The queen replied, "Now, if you wish to kill me, do so. But I have one request. Do not have the soldiers kill me. I cannot bear the thought of a soldier touching me. If I die by your hand, my soul will find peace." The king said, "No, my queen, I will not harm you. I will cherish you as my most precious treasure. And today, I break my vow of killing. You will be the only one in my life from now on. And yes, promise me that you will continue to tell me such stories." The queen responded, "Yes, my lord, I will tell you such stories every day." From that day on, the king's minister Bashir, the judges, and all the people were very happy with the king, as he no longer killed anyone. The king had found peace and love in his wise and loyal queen, and he ruled his kingdom with a just and kind heart. The queen's stories and wisdom continued to guide the king, bringing joy and prosperity to the land. The story teaches us that true love and loyalty are very important. The queen's love changed the king's heart, showing that it's never too late to forgive and make better choices. Wisdom and patience can solve problems and bring positive changes. Everyone should be treated with respect, no matter their appearance. People can change and grow if they are willing to listen and learn. The king's change from being harsh to kind shows that anyone can become better.